Welcome to the third best deck, where we talk all things Magic the Gathering and Commander. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nehemiah, joined today by Ka.
What's up, guys? Again, you guys know my favorite Ram spell is Open the Way.
Oh,
Okay.
Pretty
where'd
good
you hear
spell.
about that?
Google.
Also joining us is Lotus over at the other end of the table.
Oh, yeah. Today I am your guys' eel farmer, setting up a good business with them.
In Denver, Colorado.
We're landlocked out of here.
All right. This is episode 2. We have a fun one for you today. We'll be talking about having kind of a template maybe for those of you that are new to building a deck or want to get into building it. And instead of just upgrading a pre-con, starting from scratch, that's going to be our main topic. But before we jump into that, we got a little short one. What are we calling this one, Ka?
Yeah, we're going to do like a, why is this good? I know for newer players like myself, like I've been playing for about a year now. So for me, it took a little while to understand like, why do I need to have like a fetch land in my deck? Like I have Terramorphic Expanse. I have, Vibrant Cityscape from my favorite plane, New York City.
Oh, yeah. Hometown.
But it's like, why is a fetch land worth the price
Yeah.
for my deck?
Yeah,
Mm.
price is no joke on fetch lands, I think.
Yeah,
we can
even
all
with
agree on the
Lorwyn
price.
reprinting and, we got all the new ones from Karlov and things like that. They still getting pretty pricey. But bottom line, they just make your deck more consistent, right? Like you can have more access to the colors you need consistently. You can grab, whatever you're missing. You don't want to ever, have a couple like 4 turns where you're missing the final color of your commander and you're just sitting there doing nothing. But Nehemiah, you want to, jump
Yeah,
in?
just to kind of make sure everybody's caught up. Again, we're kind of new player focused here. We're happy to welcome all Magic players, but maybe this is, good to hear for the first time. So let me just read a fetch land to give you an idea of how it's worded, because how it's worded is the key here. So I'm using Marsh Flats as an example. Tap, pay 1 life, sacrifice Marsh Flats, search your library for a plains or a swamp card, then put that onto the battlefield and shuffle. Key things here, it doesn't say basic. Anything that has the type line, so if you're looking at a land and it says land, and then there's like a bar, and then it says basic or swamp island or swamp plains, it has that type. And that's what this fetch land can go find.
Oh, yeah.
So because this doesn't tap itself for color, this is not intuitive for newer players. If I'm playing a blue-red commander deck, the color identity of my deck is blue and red because the commander is blue and red.
Oh, yeah.
I can put a blue-green fetch land in that deck because the land itself does not actually tap for mana, even though it's got, green and blue on the color scheme of it. It doesn't actually physically tap for mana. So rules-wise, I'm allowed to play that fetch land in that color identity. And so I only need one of the 2 things it's fetching for to be a legal target in my deck to play that fetch land. So if you're thinking, if I have a blue-red deck and it's only Scalding Tarn, why we even waste our time talking about fetch lands? It's a single card out of my 99. No, it's not. You should be playing 4 fetch lands in that deck because I could play I can't play Marsh Flats in a red-blue deck, but I could play Misty Rainforest, for instance, that has legal targets. So let's break it down. Now that conceptually you understand the mechanics of it, what are the ramifications of this? We talked about consistency. What's an example of, Ka? You have a recent example of what does consistency look like and inconsistency look like?
Yeah. So I had an awesome deck that I built. It was Mardu, which is black, white, and red, as I don't know. But essentially, I spent an hour of my life that I'll never get back only drawing mountains and plains. And newsflash, I need black mana. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I sat there for an hour begging these guys to kill me, so I just didn't have to play, so the game would move on. They did, thankfully. But yeah, it's so like in that deck, I was not running any fetch lands. I had majority basic lands. And it was just miserable to play. I couldn't do anything. I wasted my time. I
Mhm.
wasted their time more or less. Yeah. And if I had a couple fetch lands in there, I could have been like, oh, now I have my swamp and I can play all these cards in my hand instead of just holding 7 cards in hand the whole game. And I was literally like the sibling you give the controller to who's not actually playing. But I was like, wow, I'm
It's just
doing this.
unplugged.
Yeah, like I'm doing this, guy. I'm doing this magic thing. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Run them fetch lands.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, because it makes your deck more consistent, right? You can actually play the game. The game is a lot more fun if all 4 players are playing, right?
Yep.
Obviously, maybe you can beat up Ka to get one of your attack triggers or something like that safely, but
He's the
well,
blood bag.
yeah, right. He's the beat stick.
I
right
lost
there.
all my lunch money that day.
Taking the treasure tokens out of his pockets. But, if he was able to play the game, definitely could have changed the dynamic up, Obviously, he wouldn't have had fun. He wouldn't have been begging for us to kill him in that game. But yeah, even in a Mardu deck, you can run, 6 fetch lands to get, the colors you need. And even then, another good thing about these fetch lands is, like Nehemiah said, it doesn't say basic land, right? So you can get any land that has a type on it. There's all the triomes that can get you things like that.
Ikoria is when they first came out.
the
That was a huge deal.
Mhm.
For those that don't know, it's a land that can tap for 3 different colors.
Mhm.
There's a color pair for all of the 10 different 3 color pairs out there.
Yep.
And it has the type for each of the colors it can tap for. So
Oh yeah.
Jeskai would be, island, plains, and mountain
Mm-hmm.
on there. It also has the ability to cycle for 3, and that's what everybody kind of judged the cards when they first came out as if it's in your hand, you could pay 3 and discard it to just draw a card if you're like getting too many lands or flooding out.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever does that. They just play it.
just play it,
Like literally, I've seen maybe 2 people do it ever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I
it-
never cycle those.
Definitely
So-
more of a late game thing.
It's not just that it's a replacement for Terramorphic Expanse where Ka could have gotten his swamp he needed. It
Mhm.
would have been a tri-land tapping for all of them. So maybe he has, 5 plains and only 1 mountain. He gets to fetch for that tri-land. Now he can cast a double red spell as well as have his black,
Yep.
Mhm.
right? And so it's a game changer to be able to not just get a color you need, but to perfectly fix your mana. So there's the tri-lands. The Abaduls are the original reserve list ones that have both types. The more
Mhm.
common one, the one that you should invest in if you are looking to buy cards and not just do proxies, are the Shocklands. They're 2 color, have both type lines. They can come into play untapped. You just have to pay 2 life for the pleasure of that. So those are kind of the key lands you should look at. But together, the consistency is unrivaled. It's not just another Terramorphic Expanse.
Mhm.
However, guys, I've got some other reasons why these are awesome that I wonder if you thought about these things. So Surveil lands came out recently.
Oh yeah.
They always come into play tapped, and usually that's seen as a huge downside. But these, I think, are now at the point in my estimation, I would rather have Surveil lands than Shock lands
Yep. I
in my
agree.
deck. Basically, what they do is when they come into play, you get to Surveil 1, which means you look at the top card of your deck. You can either put it back or put it into your graveyard. That is a game changer. There are so many mechanics in Magic the Gathering where it benefits you to have something in your graveyard.
Yep.
Mhm.
There's the obvious stuff like Reanimator, where I put a giant 8-drop in there on turn 1, and then on my next turn I could play Animate Dead, an enchantment that brings that onto the battlefield,
Mhm.
and have an 8-drop on turn 2. And that land did that for me. That
Oh, yeah.
enabled it. But the chance that I draw my single, maybe 2, depending on your color, Surveil land is very low.
Yep.
But if I'm pumping my deck with 4 to 6 fetch lands, that's like half the time I'm going to play. I'm going to have that in
Yep.
my opening hand. That's going to be in my bag.
Mhm.
That is a game changer. So you could take kind of your run of the mill deck that is a precon, slap in an awesome mana base with all these things, and your deck's power just goes through the roof. Not just the consistency to cast spells, but how you actually play the game.
Yeah.
Another thing, having that land itself in the graveyard, the fetch land goes to the graveyard as well. That helps you. There's mechanics like Delve, where it can make the cost of a spell cheaper by exiling cards out of your graveyard.
Oh, yeah.
So if I fetch for Surveil without doing anything, without casting a spell, I have 2 cards in my graveyard on turn 1.
Yep.
That's extremely powerful. So think about those things. It's not just getting your colors on curve. It's everything else that goes into it. So one of the best things. Another thing I'll say, you've probably seen this even if you are a newer player, but a lot of people run landfall decks in both white and green are probably the 2 most common.
Really popular now.
And you get double triggers on that. So the fetch land comes in, triggers landfall. Maybe you make a 4/4 beast every time a land enters the battlefield, and then you immediately can sack it, go get another land, have it come into play. It's very powerful. Very, very, very powerful. So when you're looking at, decks to buy, would you rather spend, $100 on, I don't know, play set of, Mana Tithe or something like that? Like it doesn't not Mana Tithe, Land Tax is what I'm thinking of.
Land Tax.
Something like that. Those are powerful cards, but you can only play it in white. I would say invest your early, you get a big paycheck, you get a bonus, you go invest in a mana base, because that can go in any deck. And the power of your deck, the consistency of your deck means overall you're having more fun and you're playing the game cost.
Oh, yeah.
I like to
Another good type of land you can do too, even if like budget's maybe more of a thing that you're worried about, is a lot of the lands from Streets of New Capenna, right? These lands enter, they immediately sacrifice themselves. And when you do that, you do only get a basic. So it's not as good, but if budget is a big thing that you're concerned about, you can go in, they all get you 3 types of lands based off of the groups or tribes of New Capenna, I guess. I don't know, what they're called. The gangs.
I don't know.
Right. So you can do, I don't know, Broker's Hideout, right? It can get you a forest, a plains, or an island, right? They are basics. You do gain a life. It's kind of nice, but obviously investing more money, or if your group is friendly with it, right? Proxy them, those dual lands into your deck.
The one I like that's even better than those is in New Horizons 3, Modern Horizons 3.
Yep.
There's an uncommon cycle for all the color pairs, 3 color pairs, where it taps for colorless immediately. It comes into play untapped.
The landscapes.
Yep. And then later on, when you have time and it works, you can sack it to, again, search only for basics, so it doesn't have the same straight upsides that fetch lands do. Typically, fetch lands are uniquely powerful. That's why they're expensive, is you can't get exactly that synergy with Triomes and Surveil lands that you can with anything else. This is my biggest, evidence for why proxying is kind of a requirement for people that can't run out and buy all these cards. In my opinion, lands are the most game component thing of the game, right? Because it's the pawns of a chessboard, right? It's something that just have to be there and have to work for anything else to function. So if you're considering, if you're on a budget, do some research on proxies, make sure it's something you're cool with. But that's the first thing I would proxy, is some lands. And I'm never going to get my panties in twists. That's my new catchphrase.
Put on a t-shirt.
If somebody proxies fetch lands, because I want them to enjoy the game the way it's meant to be played. So
totally.
Fair.
Cool.
I totally agree.
All right. Lotus, can you give us kind of a brief rundown on our main topic, what we're talking about today?
Main thing we're going to be talking about today is, like we said earlier, just basic deck building template for Commander, right? So we're going to go over how many lands you should typically run, what type of lands, if you should run fetch lands in these decks, how much ramp do you need? What kind of creatures do you need? Do you need to protect yourself? How much removal? It's a really big thing that a lot of people say, run more removal, right? We're going to get into all of that good stuff. But sticking on the theme of lands, my rule of thumb is bare minimum, please run at least 36 lands. Bare minimum 36 lands. And obviously you should run more just to get it more consistent, right? because you want to have something to play by turn 3 is my general idea too. So if you have enough lands to do it, then you shouldn't run into that problem. But COD, what do you think? More lands, less lands?
How many lands were you playing with early on in your Magic days?
I think I was playing with. I don't think I've changed it actually. I think I've kept it to around 36. I think to me to feel comfortable, I'm around like 35. But like in reality, it's the same thing. So yeah, I think I'm still the same. And when I'm like making like random budget brew decks, like out of like bulk, I have majority of it. They are basics. So that's where it really like shoots me in the foot, as we've heard a couple times in this show. So yeah, I think 30, 36 definitely is probably a good number. So you get like really like statistically, I may run more if I'm like, oh, I'm running a 5-color deck. I need to make sure that I can play those colors. And
Yeah.
I think that number is a little more flexible with depending on how many colors your commander is. Like if you're running mono colors, do you need 36? Probably not.
Yeah.
All right,
least
boys.
mine-
I'm
yeah.
taking off the gloves.
I don't think
So on the show notes, I wrote down 40 as the minimum.
Ugh.
I have a couple decks that have 38, but usually there's a reason that I'm willing to go down to 38. I typically start my deck with 40 assumed for a few reasons. One, that helps me keep the constraints in the deck building process. I think if you've built a deck before, you guys can probably attest to this. You want to put all the cool cards in, right?
Yeah.
And it's very tempting to just be like, oh, I can't decide between these two of my worst cards in my 99 to cut. I'll just cut a land, right? is what people end up doing sometimes, right?
Yep.
So if I start at 40, I'll probably have that conundrum at some point, and then I'm going to 39, right? But if I start at 36, like you just said,
Yeah.
you're tempted to go to 35.
Yeah, there's no room.
Have you guys seen me get stuck really bad on land
Yes.
all our time? The one time you
I
killed
think maybe like one time,
EDH, he killed my mana dork on turn 1 with a gut shot. But aside from that, typically
Yeah.
They're typically pretty good.
Typically-
I'm
pretty good.
able to play
Yeah.
the game.
No, that is
Right.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So here's my argument for why more lands is better, regardless of color. It's not just about getting up to the most expensive card you have. You know, let's say you have a whole bunch of 6 drops and only a 7 and an 8. You're thinking, I just need to get to 6 lands and then I'm good. In Commander, that's not true. You need to keep hitting your land drops. The power spike, the power curve that you have where you really can kind of lean in and make a play is when you can start double spelling in a turn. And so you have a bunch of 3-cost stuff, 4-cost stuff, 5-cost stuff. If I'm going to impact the game in the way I want to be able to play a 5-drop and a 4-drop
Yeah.
consistently
That
in the
makes
same
sense.
turn, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a 4-mana board wipe and then follow it up with a big 5-drop or 6-drop, right? I can't do that if I only have 6 lands.
True.
Right.
So I think it's important to understand this concept to build your decks with enough lands because it never hurts you to just keep making those land drops. Even if you get up into the 12 or 13, like unless I have just gobs and gobs of discard to draw kind of loot effects or rummage effects, I'm basically going to just always play my land, right? Even if I get into those really big numbers. The other reason I think it's easier to play 40 lands these days is MDFCs, modal dual-faced cards. These came out, I think, one of the Zendikar sets was their first time appearing,
Yep.
where it's literally a dual-sided card. One side is a land and another is some kind of spell or creature or effect.
Yeah.
And you get to choose when you play it which side you're going to do. This is one of the best things that they've ever done to help Commander stay fun and be a good format because that consistency, the games where you just get mana screwed when you don't have enough lands or mana flood when you have too many, this solves that problem. So on my template, we've got it written down here, 40 lands, I have 3 to 6 that you should be trying to put these modal dual-face cards into your deck. So on one side, I can make the argument, even if they were all basics, to put 40 cards in your deck. But the existence of modal dual-face cards means that the reason not to it basically vanished. Because if I am 13 lands deep and I draw a modal dual face card,
Now you have a spell.
now I have a spell, right? So
Mhm.
there's some bangers out there. It looks like Kaz got some
Yeah.
up there right now.
Mhm.
Give us one of your favorites. Maybe just read it off as an example.
Yeah. Personally, for me, my favorite one is dark. What is this one? I haven't seen some of these before. Honestly, my favorite one is Fell from the Profane.
Oh,
Fell
that's
the
good.
Very useful.
Profane.
Very useful.
It's on one side it's a black mana, and then the other side it's 2 black and 2, and it's destroy target creature or planeswalker. So it adds
Instant speed.
instant
Yep.
speed. Yep. So it's an instant removal spell as well as a land. So if you're really screwed on mana and you need that black mana, you can play it. But it's also really good just to have.
Not
Yeah.
only that, but it can come into play untapped if you pay 3 life.
Yeah.
And
specifically
that
for this
is
one.
so valuable to be able to hit your
Yep.
land drop on curve when you need it. 3 life in Commander when you start at 40 is not a big cost. So, yeah, the incredible. Disciple of Freyalise is probably my favorite. It's a 6 mana green creature, 3 green, I believe. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice another creature you control, and you gain life and draw cards equal to its power. So that's the perfect kind of card I want to draw with an MDFC where, I got too many cards, too many lands. I have at least my commander as an option for me,
Yep.
right? So if I'm at 13 lands, I could probably cast a commander if it's not already out, and then top deck that sucker and draw a bunch of cards. Maybe I have a commander with 4 power.
Yeah.
Draw 4, heal 4, I'll take it, right? And so that kind of opportunity cost is so low. You should invest in modal dual face cards. Pick your 2 favorites from each color pair.
Yeah.
Stick them in your decks. Your decks are going to work better.
And
I
not
guarantee
all
it.
of them are, sorceries or instants or creatures on the other side too. So even if you are looking for just pure color fixing, there are the pathway lands,
That's what I was
which
getting hung
on
up on.
both
I
sides
was like,
they're essentially a basic, right? They're not a basic typed land, right? So example, branch loft pathway we're looking at here on its front side, it's tap at a green mana. But maybe you don't need green mana. Maybe you only have greens out right now. You can flip it over, and now you get Boulder Loft Pathway. On its backside, it's tap at a white. These are probably my favorite, aside from Fell the Profane, because, it's an instant speed removal.
So good.
My favorite MDFC lands, just because, they offer such flexible color fixing. And, you don't get stuck not being able to play something every now and then.
Yep. I have another one I'll bring up later in the show because it's going to fit a different category. So I'll tease that, but it's one of my favorites to stick in there. Okay, so we're not done with lands because this is so important. I mean, literally your deck doesn't function if you don't get this down. So my notes here, 1 to 3 surveils in monocolor. There is a couple options. I think there's a colorless card, taps for colorless. When it comes into play untapped, you get to surveil 1. It starts with a Z. It's like Zelfair something. I'll probably put Gemini on that. But so even in a monocolor deck, there's not an excuse not to have one of those. You can't search it up like you can the surveil lands proper. But any dual, tri, quad, 5-color deck should have at least 1 to 3 of those if you can. Play as many as you can afford.
Are you talking about the it's from Outlaws of Thunder Junction? It lets you surveil, right? Is that the one you're saying?
Yeah, there's also one that lets you scry,
Conduit?
which is
the
is good.
scry one. Okay, I was thinking of Conduit Pylons. It's a desert land that taps for a colorless. You
yeah,
can
that's
pay
it.
1 to filter mana into it to add 1 mana of
A
any
colored,
color.
yeah.
And then when it enters, you surveil 1, right? So you can throw
Awesome.
that in any deck, doesn't matter what. And, super cheap card too. It helps you out getting that graveyard synergy going.
When we get to the mana ramp episodes, we have those planned for specific colors, basically non-green colors. That is a part of one of my packages that I'll talk about when we get to it. But yeah, put those in your deck. So 4 to 6 fetches, 1 to 3 surveils, 3 to 6 MDFCs, and then bounce lands. 2 to 4 is what I suggest. These are lands that tap for 2 mana, but when they come into play tapped, you have to return an existing land back to your hand. Now, these are incredible. They're not findable with fetch lands because they don't have the type line. If they did, they would be my literal favorite lands aside from fetch lands. because that's what makes them work in the first place.
Yeah.
But these things are so invaluable. We just talked about modal dual face cards.
Mhm.
So if I have like Disciple of Freyalise, for example, in my early turns, maybe I only have 2 lands, but I have a 2 mana ramp spell.
Yep.
I play it, pay the 3 life on turn 2, do my ramp spell, and then later on, if I draw a bounce land, it comes into play. I bounce that modal dual face card back to my hand.
I can use it again.
Later on, I can cast it for its actual card to draw and gain life and hit those land drops, right?
Mhm.
So that's already powerful. It's synergistic. It's synergy with those modal dual face cards to bounce it back to your hand. But it's also effectively drawing a card because if I have 2 lands and that's my 3rd land, comes into play, bounce one of my first 2 lands to play, I now have a land to play on my next drop. I have 4 mana worth of lands with only 3 cards. I just drew a card for free.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? The only downside is it comes into play tapped. That's it.
Yeah. For example, I'll read off Golgari Rot Farm here.
Yeah,
just so you have
for
an
an
idea,
example.
right? It says Golgari Rot Farm, this land enters tapped. Like you said, it's not fetchable. It doesn't have a type or anything like that. It's not even basic. But it just simply says, when this land enters, return a land you control to its owner's hand. So it's any land that you have at all, right? Dual phase, double-sided. Maybe you need to fix that color again in another way for some reason.
And it can
or
be
get a
tapped
spell
too.
back. It could be tapped. The trick to these two is, right, like it's turn 2. You have a green and a black in this situation. You can tap them both for mana, play your Golgari Rot Farm after that, bounce one of the tap lands to your hand. You still have your 2 mana to cast an Arcane Signet, whatever it'll be. That way you're not losing out on any mana. But now, next turn, you have, like Nehemiah said, 4 mana just from those 3 cards.
Yep. So the final line, just for those of you keeping track at home, I would just take notes on this podcast. That's how important I think it is. But 3 to 6 MDFCs, 2 to 4 bounces, 1 to 3 surveils, 4 to 6 fetches, and then 4 to 15 shock and tri-lands if it's a 3 or more colored deck. That number is such a wide difference depending on if you're playing 2 color, 3 color, 4 color. And then at minimum, at least 5 basics or so. I have made decks with only 3, but 5 is good in case somebody, Path to Exiles your card or Assassin's Trophy. Those are cards that, destroys or exiles something of yours, but you get to go search up a basic land as kind of like the booby prize. But you can only do that if you have one in your deck and you haven't already drawn it or played it, right?
Yep.
So that's why those are in there. Sometimes land ramp has to go get a basic for that reason too. Again, we'll do a deeper dive on ramp later on for specific colors, but for that template purposes, aim for 40. Make that your kind of challenge for yourself and see if the deck does not just play way smoother for you.
One thing I want to add on another good reason as to why you should run at least 40, right? Just pure statistic wise. Let's say, opening hand, 7 cards. With 40 lands, you have a 59% chance of having 3 in your opening hand. Usually that enables you to at least play the game. Maybe not they're not in the colors you need, but hopefully they're a fetch or something that lets you get something else. But versus like 36 is what I run. It's a 50% chance, right? So, it's not, it's a pretty good amount, right? 9% difference on getting those lands is, means you don't have to mulligan as much. But even if you do mulligan, you're almost guaranteed to have at least 3 lands in your opening hand when you start the game. So, consistency is a big thing. So yeah, just run 40, 30. That's why I said 36 minimum. I like to always start with more at least.
I have a quick question for you guys because we even brought these up. Check lands. What do you guys think about check lands? And for people who don't know what check lands are, like for example, Sulphur Falls. It's just a land, doesn't have a type at all. It says this land enters tapped unless you control an island or a mountain. So do you think that these check lands can replace some of those hard, fast numbers? Because like if you have a tri-land, for example, that's 3 different types. You can have an island, a mountain, and plains. And then you play the Sulphur Falls. Oh, wow, you have both island and a mountain, and then it's untapped. So, and it's taps for 1 of blue or red. So what do you guys think about those?
Those are great. I used to lean into those, especially in 2 color decks. In 3 color decks, you want just consistency on having your pips.
Yep.
So I'll throw those in there. They're almost never bad put in there. There is kind of a strict upgrade for 5 of the color pairs. They're the Verge lands.
Yeah.
So I'll read River Pyre Verge as an example. Comes into play untap. You could tap it for a red no matter what. And then it says tap, add blue, activate only if you control an island or a mountain. So that's basically the check land.
Except it never comes in tapped.
Only it never comes in tapped, and you always get that one color it can do. There's only the enemy color pairs right now. So white, black, blue, red, white, red, green, black, and green, blue right now
For the Verges?
for the Verges. They don't have the full.
I think we got all of them with Aether Drift.
Oh, you might be right.
We got the first
Actually,
half during
yeah.
Duskmorn. And then
That's
we got the
right.
second
That's
half
right.
during
They don't have the
Aether Drift.
word Verge in them anymore, though.
Yeah, I think they're.
No,
there's
Aether
some-
Drift has
I
Verges.
think they're still Verges.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another land
Oh,
that they're a
Scryfall
little
let
more
me down.
expensive, but there are other good like 2-color lands that you can use, especially for Commander, are the Battle Bond lands. Right? These
yeah.
Battle Bond lands enter untapped if you have 2 or more opponents. So most of the time, unless it's the end of the game and people have been getting knocked out, you shouldn't have any issue on, having that land enter an untapped, except you can't go and fetch it, right? That's
Those
always a big
lands are
deal.
good. And if you have money, so
Yeah.
I'd say go ahead and get them. But if you do want to make a cut that's like not ultra budget, but also not blinged out with the best mana based money can buy, those are the first ones that I actually cut. I would say the Verge lands and the check lands, I would actually prioritize that from a money value standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
But they are excellent. If you have them or open them, keep them. The prices are going to keep going up.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're fantastic, but they're not fetchable. If they were fetchable, they jump right up to one of my favorite ones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like just for example, I'm like looking at prices of one of them. Luxury Suite. It's a black and red land, right? Rakdos colors. It's going for $30.
Yep.
And yeah, you can always proxy.
When those came out,
but-
I bought like 5 of each because they were like in the $10 range.
Mhm.
Damn.
I prioritize buying lands when they get cheap.
Oh, yeah.
For example, we just had 5 of the Shock lands get reprinted in Lorwyn. You should be buying those. Those are already gone up. I think since it's come out, it's only been like a month or so, and they've already gone up like 50%. Got down to like $8. I bought like 20 Marsh Flats when they were $8 when Modern Horizons 2 came out.
Mhm.
Those are a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can never have too many fetch lands because you could put them in so many different color pairs. So that's important. All right. Enough about lands. I hopefully got beat over that enough of that. We'll do a sideways pivot from land, still land related, and talk about ramp. So I put down 10 to 12 cards that specifically ramp you.
Yep.
All right, where are you guys at with your generic ramp totals?
I'm
mean-
looking at my decks that I made here on Architect, not a sponsor. And yeah, just cool. Just a cool site you guys should check out. And I have probably not enough. Now looking at our template, I only have what? 7 ramp cards in my Iro deck, which probably need more.
Could definitely be more.
Yeah.
Like looking back at the numbers, right? Like if you have, usually like I run around like 10 or 11 pieces of ramp of some sort. Those can be artifacts or other things that get you lands, right? But having around 11 in a deck, right, from one of my decks looking at, if you to get one of those cards that ramp you mana in your opening hand is a 57% chance. And that's, not counting the first card you draw of the turn, right? So even if you do draw, it goes up to 62. So if you have more and more and more of those, right, some of them could be MDFCs, some of them could be, modal spells that let you do these effects. Those numbers only go up even more. Because one thing I've found about ramp and hitting land drops is a majority of the time, if you just hit your land drops at least on curve, you're more than likely going to be ahead of people in mana.
Yeah.
Because I feel like not enough people run enough ramp that they need, and too many people get stuck, or they're stuck doing one card pass. But yeah, doing 2 or 3 in a turn, that really gets you ahead.
Now, if you do both things, you have 40 lands and you have 10 to 12 ramp spells, like your boy. That's half your deck is making sure that you get to play the game of Magic the Gathering,
Yeah.
right? And when you're doing both, you're ramping and naturally hitting your land like drops. You're gonna win the game. It gives you options, right? Somebody might be freaked out about a bunch of tree folk with big butts, but if he's got half the lands and I'm like, I got like 3, wraths in my hand, kill all his stuff, and I have 13 lands and he has 6, I'm going to win the game. Even if he's freaking everybody out because he has a big board presence right now. The lands is how you should tell who's winning. We'll talk more about that on assessing threat levels on a later episode. But this is super, super important. Now, traditionally, green has been the safest bet to get land ramp. Now, anything that just makes mana is good, and sometimes you think, well, I'm in Dimir, blue-black. What can I do? We'll have dedicated episodes on how to get lands into play ahead of curve in all colors.
Yep.
Every color.
Prioritize that, right? We'll talk more about it. I don't want to spend too much time. We've talked a lot about land here. But just to give you a couple examples, if you are in green, we'll give you the green easy ones, right? And then we'll talk about other colors on a different episode. But 3 visits, sorcery, 2 mana spell, colorless and a green. Search your library for a forest card. Put that onto the battlefield, then shuffle. 2 key important things here. Doesn't say basic. You can get any forest. So everything we talked about the fetch lands before applies to this ramp spell. You can get a Triome with it. You can get a Surveil land with it. If you get a shock where it can come into play untapped, it does not say that it has to come into play tapped. So if you turn 1, do a Soul Ring, that's a card most people have in their deck. Turn 2, you can go 3 visits into Nature's Lore if you got like the nuts draw, which is basically the exact same card. Search your library for a forest card, put it in the battlefield, and shuffle. Yeah. Those cards are the same card, different names.
Yep. And they do only get you 1, but there are other spells that are, relatively cheap or, very efficient on mana. They can get you even more lands to get ahead of curve. And I know Ka has one that he really likes.
I love Open the Way. It is green, and X, and X cannot be greater than the amount of players. So at a 4-player commander pod.
4-mander. Let's call it that.
Like it.
So a 4-mander game.
No women allowed, I guess.
No. So in a 4-mander game, basically you tap X to be 4, and then you will basically reveal cards from the top of your library until you find 4 land cards. So that's just land cards. That's the key distinction here. It could be a fetch land, which would be kind of cool. It could be a Surveil land. It could be a Triome. It could be 4 basics, but it can be any of those lands.
Amazes-ith.
Amazes-it. Yeah, exactly.
Merit Liege.
Yep.
Anything. Anything.
Death.
Yeah. So that's why I like Open the Way, because it also adds like a non-normal thing to do in Commander, where it's like, all right, I'm just going to look for 4 lands real quick and just flip them from the top. And either you just get 4 lands that are on the top of your deck that you're about to draw right off the top, and they're on the board. Awesome. But yeah, I just love Open the Way. I think it's honestly a lot of fun. It's a little expensive for sure, but I think it just gives you more than 1, which makes it worth it.
I think I was the one that told you about Open the Way.
He did. He put me on.
I consider it not just ramp. I consider it a finisher. Because if you do this, if you already have 6 mana if you're doing X's 4. Yep. So if you go 6 to 10, you're now double spelling with, a 4 and a 6 mana spell, or 2 5s, a triple spell turn. Like that's how you finish the game. That's how you win the game.
Yeah.
And so this is incredible. And if you need to on turn 3, 3 mana to ramp a spell, other colors would chop off their left arm to be able to do that.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Again, tease that episode coming out. So in an emergency, it still can get you from, 3 to 4 if you need to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another note on this, and then we can get on to the next category here, but think about the flow of your deck and your commander. So if I have a 4-cost commander, I'm putting every single 2 mana ramp spell that gets lands that I can find. I don't typically like the literal rampant growth, because it doesn't do enough for me usually. It's a basic. It always comes into play tapped. To me, it's not good enough to play. However, if I have a really key 4-mana commander, I might play it because it gets me to that 4th, on turn 3 if I have another land in my hand. But if I have a 5-drop, I'm less likely to play a rampant growth. It's not good enough.
Mhm.
I might instead put a Cultivate in or a
Mhm.
Kadama's Reach, which, it's 3 mana, puts 1 into play. You go get 2 basics. Don't even have to be the same color. 1 goes into play, 1 goes into hand to make sure you hit your land drop on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't just blindly put Cultivate and Kadama's Reach into every deck,
Mhm.
depending on how much my commander costs and what my deck's trying to do.
Yeah.
So don't just blindly do the same cards every time. Like, think about your strategy, think about the cost of your commander, and kind of map that out.
Yeah, one card I really like to play, especially because I've got a landfall deck I really like, and going on to how they're finishers too. It's definitely a more expensive card, but it's Scape Shift. It's a 4-mana land card. It's 2 green. It's a sorcery, right? You can sacrifice any number of lands, and then you search for that many lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. It's not the greatest ramp, but if you're running a lot of fetch lands, ways to get lands out of your grave, or even tap lands, right? This lets you get any land from your grave, from your library onto the battlefield, right? So if you have things like we said, Dark Depths, a trick I like to do, pretty common, is you get Dark Depths out, which is a land that has 10 ice counters on it, and once they're all out, you get a big 20/20. You can get something else that's a Vesuvus, not Vesuvus.
Thespian Stage.
Sorry.
Thespian Stage.
It's my combo. I'm forgetting it. Yeah, Thespian Stage. You can pay mana to turn Thespian Stage into the other land, and then that one instantly gets you to 20/20, right? It's a big finisher combo. Or maybe you just want to re-hit all of your landfall triggers, make a bunch of plants, make a bunch of 4/4 beasts, right? Something that just enables your gameplay, right? So maybe you don't need Kadama's Reach to just get whatever it needs. You're looking for things that synergize with your deck as well. But it all depends on how much other ramp you're running, right? Maybe you don't need to get those cards.
Yeah.
I mean, on turn 4, if you sack it and go get like a Urborg and Cabal Coffers.
Mhm.
Cabal Coffers, you pay 2, tap it, and then you add black mana equal to the number of swamps you control.
Mm-hmm.
It itself is not a swamp, and normally you can only play that in a mono green deck. I'm famous for putting that in like 5-color decks because if you get Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, it makes all lands in play, not just your own swamps, in addition to their other types.
Yep.
So if I do that on turn 4, go get those 2 lands, then every single land I draw off the top is basically giving me 2 mana. The math is not exactly that, but your Cabal Coffer will go to town on that. So think outside the box. Even though lands and ramp might seem kind of boring, make it a part of your strategy. Make it a part of the fun of brewing your deck.
Oh, yeah.
You can do specific things to express yourself and still get the job done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next category, protection.
Gotta use protection, kids.
Gotta stay safe out there. You
gotta-
never know
gotta
what
use
your
protection.
other pod members in your 4-mander game are playing, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
4-man.
they're doing something sneaky. You can do all kinds of tricks, just to keep your stuff safe. Pretty popular archetype that people like to play that I've noticed is something with counters. So putting 1/1 counters on creatures. So a good way to protect those that I think is the best way is actually using a mechanic that phases them out. And phasing them out is a lot better than just protecting them, giving them indestructible or hexproof, which prevents it from being targeted, prevents them from dying or anything like that. But phasing out actually just makes it so that you treat that card, anything attached to it, any counters on them, as though they don't exist. Right? So just look away, pretend that card's there. When it phases back in at the beginning of your next turn, you still keep all your counters, any auras or equipment that are attached to it. All that stuff's still there. You don't have to repay all that mana for it. But, I mean, how many of these cards do you guys think we should play, Ka?
Yeah. Hey, as the newest Magic player at the table here, I have 0 in most of my decks, which I definitely need to increase. Like I use Slip Out the Back, which is a 1. Slip Out the Back just for 1 blue, and it's a target creature phases out, and you put a 1/1 counter on them. So I have that in my Hackball Merfolk deck that I have, and that's probably the one that I actually have phase out in the most, just because of it synergizes really well with 1/1 counters.
Exactly.
But in reality, I really don't run too many phase out things, to be honest.
So let's kind of lay it out for everybody why phasing out is something we're preferencing over traditional make all your creatures indestructible and hexproof type effects. Number 1, there's been an arms race in wraths. So for vocabulary, until we get to that episode, anything that destroys all creatures or takes care of all the creatures on the battlefield. Typically, they've been destroy all creatures.
Yep.
At most, they can't be regenerated. Well, not many creatures have regenerate, so that's kind of been flavor text for a long time. To make them better, because there are so many protection spells that made things indestructible, Magic has started to print more and more Raz that exile. They don't care if it's indestructible. It still just gets exiled. Doesn't even go to your graveyard. It's just out of the game. Unless you have Pull from Eternity. That card is bye-bye for the rest of the game. Flash up that card.
It's one of the very few cards that pulls things from exile.
It's right in my hands right now. I'm holding it.
And so to protect against that, really all you can do before is counter the spell itself doing it, like Farewell, which is you get to exile either all creatures and or artifacts, enchantments, and graveyards. It's devastating for most decks. Protection in the form of phasing out gets around that. They're just gone. So they don't get exiled. They don't get destroyed. They don't get sent to the bottom of your deck. That's another good Wrath I like, is one that just puts creatures to the bottom of your deck.
Yeah.
These get around it. So there's enough of them that have been printed. I'll mention them now. Clever Concealment, 4 mana, 2 colorless, 2 white, has Convoke, so you can tap your creatures to help pay for the cost of this. This is key. A white creature can pay for the white mana even. So if you, as long as you have 4 creatures and 2 of them are white, this can just be a free spell. You'd be completely tapped out on your mana and still cast this.
Oh yeah.
Any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. So your whole team. And it's
your
permanence. So even artifacts, enchantments. This is my favorite one. This is the one that can be free and just protects everything.
Yeah.
Another unknown one or little known one is Gladriel's Dismissal. It's a 1 mana instant. It target creature phases out. If this spell was kicked, then each creature player controls phases out instead. The kicked cost is 3. So 2 colorless, 1 white. So same cost as Clever Concealment, only you have to actually pay for it with mana. You can't convoke it.
Yeah.
And it's only creatures. But it has the flexibility of 1 mana to protect something, kind of like Slip Out the Back.
Yeah. Another one I like as well that I was running in one of my first token decks, and this is also why Phase Out is really good, is that Phase Out, lets you keep your tokens. They don't get exiled and just cease to exist, is Guardian of Faith. It's also a creature. It's 1 and 2 white. For a 3/2 with flash, right? So you can do it at instant speed. It has vigilance, and when it enters, right, any number of target creatures you control phase out. It's not as good as Clever Concealment, right? It doesn't protect your enchantments. It doesn't protect your artifacts and things like that. But what I like about it is that you flash this in, all your stuff that you want to keep safe goes away. Let's say that board wipe goes through, Guardian of Faith leaves the battlefield, and all your stuff comes back. Wait a second. I'm thinking of something else. There's another card.
Teferi's Protection.
Well, there's another similar card to Guardian of Faith. It's until that one leaves the battlefield. It has the very same effect, but once that card leaves, they all come back, and that way you have defenders ready. I think I was thinking of something else, but it's a super similar effect. I think it costs a little more mana.
Yeah.
But having those things out lets you be ready for defenders. Let's say someone is multi-spelling in one turn, right? They board wipe everything. They've got a lot of mana. They can cast in a couple creatures. Maybe they have haste and they're trying to swing you. At least with that card that I'm thinking of, you can get your defenders back and try and save yourself some damage.
Yep. We kind of buried the lead on this one, but Teferi's Protection is the single best one. Financially speaking, it's a 50 burger, but I'll read it just real quick. So until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. That's lands even. One note on this, be careful. If a commander hits you and does the full 21 commander damage to you, they can still kill you.
Really?
The way that's kind of worded in the rules, the way it works. Yeah. If you do like a damage can't be prevented spell, like Skull Crack, then when the commander hits you, it does its commander damage still.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it gets around that protection, right? Which protection prevents all damage, enchantment, blocking, and targeting. So if you can get around that, even though their life total can't change, they're still getting hurt for that damage, you can take them out. neat trick you can do, but no one really runs. So when it does, it
They're
catches
printing
you off
some.
guard.
There was a Gear Hulk Pyre or something. I gotta look that up. If we just do a quick search for Gear Hulk.
Pyrewood Gear Hulk?
Yeah, read that bad boy.
Yeah, so Pyrewood Gear Hulk it's 2 double red, double green for an artifact creature. It's a 7/7 with vigilance and menace. It says when this creature enters, other creatures you control get +2/+2, gain vigilance and menace until end of turn, and damage can't be prevented, right?
Bingo, bango, bongo.
Nice.
Don't just put your stupid Cradle Hoof Behemoth in your deck. If you have green and red, play this. It will play just as well, if not better, because the maintenance, the Menace, the menace, actually pushes through a lot of damage. Sometimes that's just better than trample.
Mhm.
It depends on the game state. Sometimes one's better than the other, but it's way better than most people realize. And the damage can't be prevented. I play a lot of flogs. We're going to talk about flogs here in a minute, but that's a big part of it too, right? If they're playing fogs, if they're playing Teferi's Protection, sometimes this can get somebody. And it's a good card. The Vigilance is also low-key really good because you could take somebody out and you're not leaving yourself open.
Really crack
So
back.
I actually, on the whole, I think it might be more generically safer to play than a Crater Hoof. Crater Hoof is so good and so much damage usually can kill the whole table. But if you can't kill the whole table, I think this is actually a better card.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now I think we should transition to Wraths.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at my deck list right now, and I got one. I got two. I got Farewell and Blasphemous Act. That's about all I got.
The staples.
The staples. I'm like, I'm in these colors. I have to use them. So how many Wraths should I be running in my deck?
I think I know for me for a long time, a bare minimum I've done is at least 3. Because I've just gotten to the point where I'd rather just lose the game and get into the next one. I think it's more fun that way. But obviously, you still want to win, so you want to carry at least a couple. You can definitely flex up depending on how, what your deck wants to do, how good your mana base is. That way you can try and rebuild before everyone. But there's a lot of good ones, right? Like the most popular one is probably Blasphemous Act, right? You can reduce that cost based off of the number of creatures on board. That way, instead of 8 mana, it's 1 red. And you deal 13 damage, to every creature on the battlefield. And then, try and rebuild from there, especially because it's so cheap, because you can make it so cheap.
Yeah.
But Nehemiah, what about you?
So I put a note here. This is a Nehemiah thing. Then like everybody should do this thing, but everybody should do this. I think you should choose Wraths ways to kind of protect yourself from somebody else getting better board state than you in a more specific way. Like Farewell is amazing, but it does put everybody back to the Stone Ages, and it makes the game longer often.
Yep.
So I think usually use your creativity. There's so many different cards out there. You'd be surprised. Do some research. Get on Scryfall and start, poking your nose around. Because there's stuff that can synergize with your build to where it's not a symmetrical, just everything dies, right? I put it on here. Fell the Mighty. It's a 5 mana, 4 colors, 1 white sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power.
I was like,
In a Butts deck.
Yeah, I was like, I play that in my Doran deck. He's an 05, and I just target my commander, and then anything that has more power, which is typically every other card but mine, just dies. And then I have a very big forest, and
you can swing out right after. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of
exactly.
the tree folks usually have like 0/7 or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like 1/8, right? Some weird effects where they have a big butt, like we said. So having a card that synergizes with your deck, like Fell the Mighty, is a one-sided board wipe in most cases. Worst case scenario, they have a couple 1/1s or 1/2s left behind. But with a lot of trees on the board, you can usually use that as a win con.
Yep. Just a few more examples to get your juices flowing, your creative juices flowing. Divine Reckoning, 4 mana. Each player chooses a creature they control, destroy the rest. The cool thing about this is it has flashback for 5 and 2 white, so you can actually do this twice. I would put this in a deck where my commander is like a unit, something that can just either a Voltron deck where you're putting a bunch of enchantments or artifacts on them to make something huge. Everybody else goes down to 1 creature. Your creature is going to beat that creature, right? And the game continues. We're not all completely starting over.
Yep.
It's not a huge feel bad because they get to pick one creature to keep.
Mhm.
That's the kind of card that you should be thinking about.
Mhm.
Is something that isn't
keeps
a
it
card
fun.
that's like, wow,
Yep.
that's cool. I've never seen that before, and it's better gameplay.
Yep.
Another one, Shatter the Sky, 4 mana, white, 2 colorless, 2 white. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, then destroy all creatures.
Mhm.
So maybe you're building a 4 power matters deck, and you draw a bunch of cards. Everybody else, has a little 1/1s or whatever, a token deck. That's not parity anymore. Now you have
Yep.
more cards to redeploy and then end the game, right?
Mhm.
So Austere Command is a classic one. That one people know more about. Lotus, you want to read that one?
Yeah, Austere Command, super popular, printed into a lot of precons as well, but it's a sorcery for 4 generic and 2 white. You got to pick 2. You can either destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, and then this is where it gets fun. You get to either destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, or all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. I know that in all the decks I run this on, either my commander is either 3 mana or 4 mana, or, like we said, we're doing a lot of 4 drops in the deck, and then I pick everything else that I need to get out of the way. Or if it's an emergency, right, someone's playing a bunch of, big gear hulks, like you mentioned earlier. They're like 6, 7, 8 drops. You can get rid of all of that stuff and keep, whatever's left of your deck, all the little guys alive to try and, fight back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's really all we want to leave you with is like, go do research, go find a unique wrath. Number 3 to 5, I think, is the right number. I have decks with 2. Maybe I have a way to find it more consistently with something else. Maybe I'm playing a Planeswalker deck where I need the creatures off the board, right? So maybe I play on the higher end, 6 or 7. So 3 to 5 is kind of the middle, the middle round.
Yeah.
All right.
I hate
It's
you.
going to be card draw. Card draw, is what runs the game. Without any cards in your deck, you're not going to do anything. My general rule of thumb is you need at least 10 sources of card draw. I think 8 of them should be able to, maybe consistently or semi-consistently get you cards turn over turn. And then, or at least 4 of them. And then maybe the other 6 can be, burst card draw effects, cards that you can, pay 1. Well, sorry, not pay 1, pay some amount of mana and you get more than the 1 card that you're using to cast it, right? There's so many of those effects. Some of them let you discard cards and get 2 back. Some of them let you, pay life to get 3 or more cards, right? But having at least 8 to 10 of them, backed, like I said, with the statistics, you'll get in your opening hand at least 1 of them. If you have 8, 50% of the time, and the more is better, because then you can draw more and more cards to get more and more cards that draw you cards, and get to your win con quicker. But we're looking at some of our decks here. Well, how many do we typically like to run, Kyle?
Yeah. So I'm looking at my Iro deck, which we've been referencing all show here. And according to Architect, I have 13 cards that give me draw.
Oh yeah, that's good.
But this is important. How this deck is built. Some of these you do not want. Like, basically, you don't know the card. Basically, the commander gives permanents that I control. So I have artifacts that draw me an extra card, which is really cool. But they end up trying to discard my hand, which really sucks. But of course, I don't want that. So I give it to my fellow 4-mander players as cups of tea. And they're very thirsty for card draw. Yeah, tea in quotes. So I think that number's a little inflated for sure, looking at it here. But I would say at least 8 to 10 of them are good cards that I would want. So I do think it is a really good balance. And I think that if you have creatures also, because that's what makes card draw awesome, is that certain creatures will enable you to draw, right? And then not just your sorceries, not just your instants, right? So
and that goes back to repeatable card draw, right? For example, I have a deck with Jin Sakai, Ghost of Tsushima, which, long story short, gives creatures either unblockable or double strike. So this deck has full of creatures that when they deal combat damage to a player, you either draw a card, discard a card, draw that many cards and discard a card, or just draw a card, right? Depending on your deck, you want to have things that can either synergize with it or just have true regular card draw to get you ahead. And, having that is just going to keep you consistent. That way you can, like I said, draw more cards to draw more cards.
Yeah, the card draw category is part of the deck building that's fun to build, right? That's the unique kind of freedom aspect that you're going to have building the deck. I think a better way to maybe even say it is card advantage.
Yep.
Because maybe it's not literally drawing you a card, but it's effectively drawing you a card or getting you up on resources. And that's where the variety of all the decks come in, right?
Yep.
Commanders in general are uniquely card advantage, right? Because you can keep casting it over and over again.
Yeah.
Another reason to have 40 lands in your deck. So that we'll leave that to you. We don't want to bore you too much with card draw specific examples because that's like all of Magic at this
There's a
point.
million
It's
ways to do
basically
it.
2020 Magic is just card draw dot cards, right? But 8 to 10 repeatable, I think, is a good call out. Or burst, have a couple burst ones in there. Like the Frey Lease, Disciple of Frey Lease card that I was talking about. That's a land, but it's also kind of a burst of card draw. That would count. That would count toward that number, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Then for deck theme, we're just this is the big question mark. We're not going to spend any time on this, but 32 to 36. When you do the math of everything else we're going to talk about, that's the theme of your deck. That's what's going to be uniquely put into the deck that you're brewing. Have at it. Have fun with that. And then we're going to move on to removal. Now, I want to ask your guys' opinion. I have a 0 to 3 as my removal number. If modal, but not MDFC. What I mean by that is there's cards. Let me pull up Archdruid's Charm.
Yep. Archdruid's Charm.
Somebody want to read that one for me?
Yeah. 1 second.
This is a good example of when I'm looking at my kind of template for building a deck, this can fit into multiple slots. And the more of these cards you put in your deck, the more cards you get to put in your deck, right? That are fun and useful and synergistic. Go ahead and read that one for us, just as an example.
So Archdruid's Charm is 3 green, and you have to choose one. Search your library for a creature or a land card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield tapped if it's a land card. Otherwise, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Or put a 1/1 counter on a target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Again, another or. Exile target artifact or enchantment.
Yeah, so I'm counting 0 to 3. That number's kind of low because I'm trying to build as many MDFCs with removal. You already mentioned Fel to Profane.
Yep.
That's a perfect example. That would count as 0 because it's my land drop. I'm counting it to that 40 total. So I'm thinking 0 to 3 that aren't lands, basically.
Yep.
And again, it depends on the deck and the strategy and what your commander's doing, right? Maybe your commander has a built-in removal aspect, and you could put 0 in for sure. But I do think removal is important. It's a part of the game. It's the interactive part. It's the oh snap, he was gonna win, but somebody had the removal spell.
That big hype moment.
Those are the big moments,
It's
right?
happened to me so many times.
That number's low because we're expecting you to juice it up somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the numbers.
I'd say, aside from the 0 to 3, just pure dedicated to it, like overall, including your MDFCs, your lands that can do this and things like that, a big number I like to just run for like anything that you want something consistently, right, is at least 8, right? Back to that 50% number where you get at least a 1 in your opening hand. Because then you can hold on to that the whole game and you'd be like, hey, this guy's about to win. We got to get rid of like the one thing we have to. Or maybe you just want to stave off some big damage. Someone's swinging you with like a 12-12 or something. You can try and blow it up before it hits you, right?
Yep.
But having that 50% chance to at least have one, I think 8-ish of them should be that. But yeah, try and spread them out. You can use them on creatures. Some have activated abilities. Maybe it's a mana rock that lets you blow something up for some cost of some sort, right? But, mix them in. It doesn't have to be pure dedicated slots, but as long as you have a good amount, you're set, at least 8, I say.
All right, so the next one is another 0 number is tutors. I put 0 to 2. Let's just take a quick moment to talk about tutors in general. What's your kind of opinion on tutors? Is it something, obviously it's powerful, but do you think that's good for the game, bad for the game? Are you neutral on it?
I think it's, I wouldn't say bad for the game. I wouldn't say. I think it just adds a little more of like speed to it. Obviously, if you're like tutoring like 3 things in one turn, then it's like, all right. But it's like, oh, I'm looking for, like, I have a Voltron deck, and it's like, if I am Sigardizade, I think is the
Mhm.
one
Where things have flash.
or
and-
things that
yeah.
flat. Yeah. So like tutoring for certain things, I think that's the tutor, right?
Yeah, Sigardizade, I'll read it off here. This one said, like, for example, if you tutor for Sigardizade, right? It says it's an enchantment for 1 white. It says you can cast aura and equipment spells as though they add flash. And whenever an equipment you control enters, you can attach it to target creature you control.
Yeah, it's like if I have like really expensive equipment, like a Colossus hammer, which costs 8 to equip but gives my creature 10/10, I would tutor for Sigardizade so I can get huge damage, commander damage onto the board and make something happen. But yeah, I think if you're tutoring for like your deck to like work, I think that's good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Mhm.
if you're just like tutoring, like maybe I'm tutoring for a counter spell to counter the big win, maybe, or tutoring for that removal spell to kind of save you,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote, or save the four-manders at the
Yeah.
table. You know, so I don't know, Lotus. What do you think?
No, I totally agree, especially if you're tutoring for, solutions for whatever the problem is at hand. I think it makes it more fun, especially at lower tier Magic, because if you're just tutoring for, the win con all the time, you're probably at a bracket 4, maybe even cEDH, right? Like where you're strictly going for the win every single time you get that card, because tutors are really powerful because they're essentially a second copy of any card in your deck, right? But yeah, if you're using it, for the counter spell to counter someone's Crater of which or something similar, right? Something that's going to win them the game that turn. I think that's exciting. But yeah, if not, I mean, especially true to lower tier Magic, keep it fun. If not, move up the bracket. That's fun too.
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate. So I have plenty of tutors in my decks, but what I try to do is not put too many generically good ones, the black ones really,
Mhm.
that can get any card,
Mhm.
because that kind of leads to repetitive gameplay, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
I
guys see my deck play, I don't want you to feel like I'm doing the same thing every time. It's boring for you. It's boring for
Mhm.
me. It's
Mhm.
just like, I've seen this before.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so part of the fun is we have 100 cards, singleton format. That kind of ruins the nature of the format if it's just a generic, cheap to cast tutor.
Yeah.
So I try to challenge myself. I'm not poo-pooing on somebody, using a demonic tutor. Go for it. I like to make that challenge for myself. So I mentioned guided passage in the last episode.
Yep.
Of something that can tutor for 3 things, but my opponent's the one that's giving me the cards, right? So there's some negotiation that has to happen.
Yep.
That's fun, right? It's useful. It's getting the job done, but it's less boring, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I wanted to bring up, and it goes right with your Sigardizade example of a target that you want to tutor for.
Yep.
Instead of just playing like the generic, tutor
Grab
that,
enchantment.
yeah, I suggest doing Bright Glass Cure Hulk as one. So I'll read this real quick. It's 2 green, 2 white, so 4 mana. It's a 4/4 for strike trample. When the creature enters the battlefield, you search your library for up to 2 artifact, creature, and/or enchantment cards with mana value 1 or less.
Yep.
So that's incredibly specific.
Mhm.
Gets the card you need, has a huge impact on the board, but there might be a whole bunch of different things you can get for 1 mana that's going to be situationally useful, right? Like
Yeah.
land tax or whatever. And so that gives you some flexibility, some consistency, but not like, oh, I'm bored that it keeps tutoring up the exact same thing, or you can't really get a counter spell with that. It'd be tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I another example I put in here, this is from the Avatar set. It's an uncommon 5 mana, Low and Lee twin tutors. When Low and Lee enters, search your library for a lesson or a noble card and put that in your hand, then shuffle. And then creatures you control with lessons, spells, and spells you control have lifelink. That's fun, right? If somebody plays that, I'm like, oh, wow, cool. You're playing like a lesson tutor deck. That's something unique and something fun. So I would take these slots because they are powerful, like to your guys' point,
Mhm.
but make it more creative, more specific to your deck to have some fun with it instead of just boring, generically good.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Get something fun. That's the bottom line, right? Get something interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Our last card. If you've been counting, you say, Nehemiah, you're not done. You've mentioned 98 cards. That's not possible with our ranges, but saving one spot for a fog. I'm a huge fog guy.
I'm a zero fog guy.
And then
That's what I am. And
for the people that don't know, what is a fog generically? What does that do for you?
So there's a card called Fog, and it said creatures can't deal combat damage this turn, I think, until the end of turn. Basically, nobody could do any damage in combat.
Yeah.
So no damage to creatures, no damage to players. You just can't take damage. So the reason I like this Cards of the Ilk, is it's incredibly powerful. If you think, like, how much mana or life would you have to gain for a 1 mana spell? So if it costs 1 green, gain life. How much life would that have to be for you to play that card?
3.
I think it'd have to be at least 3 because food tokens are pay 2, get 3. So if I'm using a whole card for
those are attached to something else, like a whole card.
A whole card, I think at
3,
least 3, probably more though.
No, because there's like some white cards that are pay 3, gain 3 life, and you draw a card for like 1 or 2 mana. So I think 3 life is probably like a
No. I'm saying if you just had a card that says gain X
3.
life,
3.
that card exists.
I know,
You put it in your decks.
of course.
What?
Guess he just hasn't drawn it.
I haven't.
He needs more card draw, guys.
I do.
Well, in my opinion, for a 1 mana spell, I want it to gain me at least 20, and then I would
20?
I would put it in my deck. If it was less than that, I probably wouldn't put it in the deck.
I think if it gave me at least like 6 life, I think it wouldn't be too bad. If I'm running like a life game.
There's Feed the Clan. You can gain 8 for 2 mana.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the most efficient, like, sorcery instant versions of that.
Right.
Crypt Incursion, I think, is another one. It's a black spell for 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
You exile somebody's graveyard and you gain a life for each
I've seen that.
creature card in their graveyard, I think, or each card in their graveyard, I think. Might even be double that. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, a fog is like a 1 mana gain 60.
Right.
I would play
yeah,
that.
I see that.
I would play that.
on a crater hoof turn.
Yeah. I mean, like, you literally prevent yourself from dying.
Yeah.
It's so cheap mana-wise that you could swing out on somebody else, and normally it's like, oh, you're dead on the crackback from somebody else, and you're not because you have a fog, right?
And not even that. You don't even have to cast it on to save yourself. You could really use the politicking part of Commander.
Absolutely.
And tell someone like, hey, I can save you right now if you do this for me, right?
Yep.
You show them like, hey, I've got a fog, I got to like protect you, just trust me, like either block or don't block. You can cast it, they owe you a pretty big favor, especially if you just staved off 30 damage for them.
Yeah.
Yep. And the reason I say 1 and not like, you've been saying like geometric calculator, like 8 is the right number to seed every I don't want to seed every time. That's the fun of the Commander is I want you to think Nehemiah might have a fog.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Somewhere.
That affects how you attack, who you attack.
True.
That it just needs to show up sometimes. It's a big moment. It's fun. It keeps you alive. But I don't want a million of them. I don't want it to ruin my deck's synergy. I don't want it to be a fog deck, right? But the 1, it's like plausible deniability, right? Like it's like it keeps people honest, right?
True.
And so I actually recommend for fun, for gameplay wise, stick a fog in your deck.
Oh, yeah.
There's white ones, there's green ones, there's some blue things that do similar stuff. Aetherize is like a 4 mana get out of jail free card, right?
Creatures that do it too, things like that. Yeah.
Yep. There's a ton. Have fun finding them, but that's pretty much it, guys. That's our
Yeah.
our
So go build
template
those
here.
There's our template.
decks,
Go
get those
forth and build.
cards, see how it goes.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a PDF to put in the description of the video, so you
Break it down.
So you break it down a little bit. Yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening. Again, all of our listeners, find us on TikTok, X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. Yeah. Any last words for you guys?
No.
Adios.
We'll see y'all next time.